Hey, beautiful, beautiful, wonderful people. It's been a little while since we have sat down together, shared some time, shared a story, wove some wisdom together. So much has happened. I think that is the core and the foundation to why it's been a little bit of time. Many of you will know I've just moved through and into my 50th year. That come about in April, and I was really blessed that in a small way that was marked beautifully with some people around me with a wonderful rite of passage. I undertook a rite of passage on my father's land in his woodland. Within the woodland there's this beautiful lake and there's a copse of trees, and we undertook this wonderful rite of passage and this ritual overlooking the woodland lake, and I was gifted the most incredible gift. I think I may have shared this before, but for those of you that haven't seen it, there we are. And this was gifted to me within the ritual, the rite and the ceremony, and it actually weaves the story of my ancestry. Over here we have my Irish ancestry, and over here we have my newly in the last year discovered Nordic roots, and it's the merging and the story between the two. And also I really truly believe that this is a medicine story of our time, where we are being woven back to the centre, where we continue to move from harm to healing, where we move into a space of harmony. And I think that's a really interesting point. Reason why I haven't jumped onto a video before now is that I felt as if I've been really kind of integrating where I find myself this whole year. The last 6 months of this year have been quite a profound journey for myself personally, and I think that at those times where we're in transition and we're in kind of deep change, is that it's kind of important to be present with that and to observe it, witness it, to be consciously engaged into that process rather than moving through it. You want to move with it, and I think that has been a really kind of powerful thing within itself. And there's been so much that has, I feel that has been kind of called back home. There's a deep sense of remembering that feels way beyond this time as well. And just within the medicine shield that sits on our family altar, I knew of the story of my Irish ancestry, and they are my mum's people. So my mum's people come from Ireland. My grandfather on my mum's side was born 5 minutes away from St James's Gate there in Dublin, 5 minutes away from the Guinness factory. And I knew of my Irish ancestry, but in the last couple of years I had a very powerful dream, where I was walking along a dirt track, a single track road, and I knew I was in Ireland, and I didn't know how I knew, I just knew within this dream that that's where I was. And I was walking along this trackway, and the further I got back, the further I went back in time. You know, people's faces and clothing all changed the further I went back in time. And some of these people would acknowledge me, some of these people would just walk past me. Yeah, I didn't know them, but those that acknowledged me, I felt there was a familiar feeling to that experience. There was a kind of a deep acknowledgement, and I was going back further and further until I got to a point where I walked off the trackway and I walked through this hedgeway. There was this gap in the hedge, which to me, it was a very powerful story and symbol within that journey, within that experience, within that dream, because it's like the gap in the hedge moving from one space to another. And you know, I've blogged about Utasita, I've shared about Utasita on Instagram, which is known as the Nordic shaman like vision quest, where you kind of move into the landscape and you sit at a transitional point, so that be a crossroads, that be where land meets water, that be where the mountains meet the lowlands, where a river becomes a waterfall. You know, these are gateways, these are doorways, these are transitional points, these are portals, if you like. They're gateways, they're places of power. And you kind of sit on these points, and you kind of sit and you observe and you watch and you feel and you listen. So, you know, within the dream, I'm going through this gap in the hedge. You know, I'm going through a transitional point. I'm going through a gateway, and I come into this copse of trees, and they're standing there. It was as if I was observing. Standing there is this lady, and she has a green cloak. She has this green cloak on, and I'm not so sure now, and this is the thing, was it red hair or was it dark hair? And I can't quite remember. Both of those feelings come up for me as I remember. But she's standing there and she's holding a blackthorn staff. That is very, very crystal clear. She's holding this blackthorn staff, which is a very important point along our journey. And she's holding this blackthorn staff, and she's uttering words that I don't understand. It's either, it must be Old Irish, Gaelic, and she is looking up at the moon. And I knew that I had met one of my ancestors. And she's kind of uttering these words as if they're an ancient prayer. And I can feel, I don't understand them, but I feel they're coming from deep inside of her. And I remember waking up and I felt hugely emotional. I was kind of in floods of tears because I knew I had met one of my ancestors. It was a very powerful experience, and other than the hair colour, everything is so vividly clear, really hugely clear. And there was such a deep sense that I had really connected very deeply with this person, this ancestor, kin. So I knew of my Irish ancestry, which, you know, there had been presented this incredible shield, and the artist, part of our family, were very blessed. You know, what an incredible gift, and you know, she was just asked to paint whatever punches through, and not knowing that it was such a kind of tangible story that was unfolding, and then, you know, discovering our Nordic roots. You know, these are very powerful experiences. So, you know, undertaking that, the rite of passage, I had quite a strong fall in March, and you know, these things, you know, kind of ripple through our world, and you know, we're never quite the same person the other side of it. So it's been a time of deep integration, but here we are now. We are approaching midsummer and summer solstice, and you know, for us, this is the day that we gather and traditionally bring in our huge, large garlic harvest, which was planted on the arrival of winter nights. Now, what I've kind of really connected with is the wheel of the year. You know, and I was talking to a very old and dear friend about this recently. Me and him were sitting at the buffet at the kitchen garden, and we were sharing that, you know, the wheel of the year, what I've come to, and he was sharing this with me, and it's something I felt for some time, and it deeply resonated with me. He said it with such kind of profound depth that, you know, the wheel of the year, these gateways again, these doorways of time, these dates are not just, you know, kind of bolted down to a specific day. It's a period of time. And I can remember another dear friend of mine, some of you know of her, Elaine from Pure Ground Flowers, you know, saying about, you know, the beginning of the year being the beginning of springtime. You know, when those first shoots start to appear, that's the beginning of the year, and that's the beginning of a whole new cycle of time. And all those things kind of, you know, make sense. You know, we kind of live in this calendar that seems quite linear and quite fixed, but actually, you know, it wasn't, and it was a period of time within time. And also, you know, it was a cycle, it was a spiral, and it was nature led, you know, and, you know, we were kind of, you know, measuring time by the moon cycle as well. You know, it was a lunar calendar. So yeah, we planted our garlic on the arrival of winter nights, which is marked as being the end of October the 31st, known as then the end of the harvest. So once that harvest is in, and the end of the harvest, and the land begins to be laid to rest, that garlic is planted. So it's planted in amongst the darkness. Simple yet deep alchemy and magic for us, as it's planted in the darkness and it's harvested in the light. So we bring it in around midsummer, around the longest day. It's harvested in the light, and we celebrate solstice this way, sharing a mug full of Mugwort Ale a bloat, an offering is given to the landwights that dwell within the land we work and care for, giving thanks to them, and to Freya, our beloved goddess, our patroness. It's also the time of union of Frey and Freya, who, for me, kind of combine their energies in that union, and in a way, it's the symbolic act of turning the flowers to fruit. Himdall and his rainbow bridge, another kind of symbol that's been woven into this as well. The rainbow bridge, and the rainbow bridge for me is such an important part of the work that I do. The rainbow bridge being the bridge between here and the next world, here in the other world. That also is honoured at high summer. You know, our loved ones, our ancestors, in the summerlands. It's a time of making wreaths, fire offerings, and the adornment of fields, dressing the fields, the barns and the dwellings, the houses with greenery and flowers. You know, what we're talking about here is really celebrating. And all of that can be found at this time. You know, then to watch the sunset, to drum, share a story or two. We like sharing stories. Stories is where we pass our experiences on, our wisdom on. It's where we meet, we connect, we gather. And then plaiting, while all that, you know, is happening together, plaiting and hanging the garlic for it to dry. And we do harvest a fair amount, and then it's plaited and then hung to dry. And then in the coming months, some of it is preserved, blanched and placed into garlic oil. Some of it can be smoked, and some of it can be used traditionally. But it's that whole thing of planting at the darkest part of the year, and then travelling, and then harvested at the lightest part of the year. And that in itself feels like an act of alchemy and an act of magic. It's simple yet a beautiful way to mark this time. And as I say, for us, it's a time rather than a day. Now I'm going to pull a rune. I also will weave into this video our Blot, rite and ritual for you to take some inspiration from. The Blot and rite and ritual that we use before we harvest that garlic, a way of giving thanks and honouring the landwights, patroness, goddess, the spirits that dwell within that land. It is a deep time of honouring. So, I'm just going to pull a rune. The last rune I pulled was on May Eve, as I sat in Utesita underneath the large oak tree next to a hedgeway of blackthorn and hawthorn, as I seeked permission for our open rites, rituals and sharing circles that are going to be held from Loaffest onwards. And those of you that are local, that you would like or feel called to, inspired to take an earth journey with us or sit with us within a sharing circle, do drop me an email, and we can send you the details. So let's have a feel for the room. see. Look at my rune chart, and then once I've got the thread, we can jump into the deeper meaning in the rune. Jump. Okay. Ah, beautiful. Okay, so here it is. This rune. Okay, so this rune will carry us from summer solstice to Loaffest. It's the wisdom of this time. It's the message, the threads of this time, and it has associations with hearth. Makes sense. Hearth, fire. To think that we're in the longest day. That makes sense. To think that we traditionally at this time would also light fires and bonfires, and there'll be offerings to the fire. Hearth completely makes sense. It's also primal energy. It's the sun again. It's that real kind of strength and that real kind of force. So, you know, I was sharing on one of my blogs and on Instagram, those of you that follow me over there, is I was sharing that, you know, when it comes to runes, it's not about trying to change the relationship to how we read these. It's about kind of weaving in those layers into the modern world, and how we can still apply those layers in a way that can still serve us. So if we kind of look at that kind of fire and primal force, actually that's kind of what's needed at this time. If you kind of look at what's going on in the world, what we're needing to do is find that fire from deep within, find the fire from deep inside of us, and absolutely kind of bring it up and bring it out, and to step into the forefront, to step into leadership, to, you know, kind of find that leadership and that warriorship and that strength within. And, you know, sometimes you may not feel that that is always possible, but here's the thing. I believe that true leadership, true strength also comes in our ability to be vulnerable and bare and stripped back in our vulnerability. It doesn't mean that it has to be seen as a weakness. I think, you know, it's like I learned that from my fall. You know, I fell backwards from a great height. It was such a traumatic experience, but what I learned was to weather that vulnerability, to wear that vulnerability, you know, stripped back, kind of, you know, bare and fragile and vulnerable, but to wear it with integrity, with deep strength, that we can meet our pain and our vulnerability and trauma. We can meet it in a way that, as we move with it, as we grow, that we carry it with a deep truth. And I think that's what's required in the world right now, is that sense of bringing out that inner fire, you know, kind of finding that real kind of spark within inside of us, that inner half inside of us, that one also invites us to rest deep inside of us, to go deep within and know who we are, what we're about, what we're bringing and weaving into the world, and to kind of carry that with leadership and with sovereignty and with integrity. Right, and that's the thing about these runes. These runes are really punchy. You know, I'm loving that message, and it's just kind of, it's been unlocked inside of me. You know, that's the thing, is once you've kind of got the beginning thread, the beginning spark of what it is, the rest will build and grow. You know, we can access that information from beautiful books out there, but you know what, if we sit with it and we kind of journey with it, if we spend a bit of time with in a Utasita with it, it will absolutely unlock its story. You know, and as I was saying with the beautiful shield, is that, you know, we are being woven back into the center, and to be woven back into the center is kind of standing there and absolutely knowing who you are, what is your fire, what is your passion, what means the most to you, and absolutely weave it and bring it into the world. And even within that fragility and vulnerability and within that pain, is that we can absolutely hold that and share it. Powerful, powerful stories. I'm going to leave all of that with you. Keep being absolutely what's in here. Let it come from in here. Bring it up from deep within here, and journey well. And until next time, until Lowfest, keep shining, my friends. Keep shining.